Our first presentation comes from SALT Employee Benefits, who will share how fund administrators are rising to the challenge of upgrading systems and finding smarter ways to use member data and digital tools to stay strong and adaptable. They will present on resiliently navigating retirement reform through data analysis and technology. Please join me in welcoming Nazli Seekers and Jaco Wasserval from SALT Employee Benefits.
Thanks, Geraldine.
You have clicker?
Yeah, I think I left the clicker. It's a good start. Bianca, give us the clicker. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. I didn't eat. I was nervous. My name is Nazli Seegers. I'm the CXO for SALT Employee Benefits, which basically means I'm the people person. I am joined by my colleague, Jaco Wasserval, who's the CEO of the Benefit Counsellor. And we're hoping to talk to you about resiliently navigating through retirement reform this afternoon. Okay, so operational resilience for retirement funds in the South African context. SALT is a 13B administrator, and so we're going to talk to you from an administration point of view. The objective of the session is to talk to you about management information. And what is management information? It refers to the structured reporting, dashboards, reporting insights that trustees and principal officers rely on to oversee the performance, compliance, and member outcomes of a fund. You would have heard a lot today about member outcomes, and that's really what our session is focused on as well. Management information is a central theme in the conduct standards that we've been seeing recently, and the call is to show evidence-based governance. So a policy, yes, we have a policy in place, is no longer sufficient. You've got to show through your data and your reporting that you're actively implementing the measures that you say that you have. So what are the practical tools that boards can put in place to assist them? Right. So again, we're looking at member outcomes, and we believe that trustees can materially improve the member outcomes by embedding data analytics into their governance, risk, and compliance cycles. That sounds simpler than it is. Focus on outcomes. So looking at contributions, claims, complaints or TCF, and then what you as a board do from a self-assessment point of view. So a practical toolkit is what we hope you take out of the session with you, talking to KPIs, dashboard designs, analytics use cases, and then governance checklists. All right, so let's talk about the regulatory context. We've only seen a few regulations come down. These have huge impact for us as an administrator, of course. So we've got, is there feedback? Yeah. Is there a bit of feedback? Or is it fine? Oh, it sounds like it, yeah. Okay. So the Fiscal Conduct Standard 1 of 2022 obviously came out, and funds were required to comply with that. Then we've had the Conduct Standard 4 of 2020, the Joint Conduct Standard, which has got to do with cyber, came out last year. The Kofi Bill is coming, and that's really what we'll focus on. And then the Fiscal Conduct Standard 2 of 2025 for retirement fund administrators has also been published. And so there's all of these conduct standard, joint standards, bills that are coming into our environment, and how are we as boards of trustees, as administrators, going to ensure that we comply and that we add value for our members. So from a roles and responsibilities point of view, we see four major players in terms of what we're talking about today. So the board of trustees, the fund principal officer, the administrator, and then your auditors. So what does the board do? So the board must approve the data strategy. we wanted to do Menti questions. I was late, but how many boards actually have a data strategy in place? It's something that should exist for the fund. KPIs, what are your key performance metrics as a fund? What's your risk appetite? Have you unpacked that? You oversee remediation and you hold the administrator and the other service providers to account. And it's important to note that when you're talking any conduct standard, particularly the joint standard for cybersecurity, you're not only talking to the administrator. We pass data to tracers who are tracing benefits for the fund. In many instances, administrators pass data back to the fund. A lot of funds want copies of their data. How are you protecting that data? Then you've got the fund principal officer who coordinates the reporting, ensures compliance, does the remediation monitoring. She's more operational, or he's more operational than the board, and then the timely regulatory submissions. The administrator obviously implements the operational controls. We produce the management information to a large extent for the fund. I'm not saying there aren't other service providers, but probably the biggest portion comes from your 13B administrator. We need to remediate the defects that are identified. We ensure cyber and third-party compliance within our environments. It's the biggest systems provider that you have. Then your auditors. There you've got independent testing of controls, report findings, and then we track and see how we close those. And we've got both internal and external audits have a place on funds. So you do internal audit to make sure that your controls are in place. You can select certain sections of your administration. So perhaps contributions in the first half of the year, claims in the second half of the year, complaints. And so how you do that is up to you as a fund, but it just gives you an extra level of assurance. All right. Then dashboards that trustees or members should see monthly. So as an administrator, we've spent a lot of time developing a member portal, and this is what our member portal looks like. This is for the member. This is what the member sees. So when they click on contributions, it goes down and it shows them their monthly contributions. It shows them when it was contributed, etc. If we've allocated any AVCs, if they go into benefits, it will tell them what benefits they've got, etc. What we're saying is that we need a similar dashboard, but for the board of trustees. So the same format, but you'll be able to click and see what it is that you need to be looking at from a fund perspective. So our suggestion are these 5 tiles as a start. You could have more, you could have less, but we're saying at least these 5. So contributions, obviously, claims, member outcomes or TCF, and in there you could put in your member engagements, your complaints, direct and OPFA, etc. Then you've got your cyber and IT risk tile, and then your financial and investments. So those are the 5 tiles that we're saying funds should look at. Okay, so what happens when you click on the contributions tile or the claims tile? We want to show you some of the dashboards that we utilize internally. So if you look at the top half of the slide, we're showing you not just we received 100 Rand last month for contributions and we allocated 100 Rand last month for contributions. As an administrator and as a board, we're tracking what the contributions allocations look like for the last 12 months. So the top line is the income, the bottom line is the allocations, and then right at the bottom you've got the difference. So color coding is important for boards. It helps you digest the information and understand what to do with it. So you'll see, for example, in the last 3 months, we've been able to allocate everything that's been received. But if you look at the 6-month picture, then we've got 20 million that's unallocated. Last 12 months, there's about 17 million. So it's easy for the board to see where focus needs to be if you're looking at it from a dashboard point of view. The bottom half of the slide is also a dashboard tile, but for claims. And what we're saying here is that you're seeing the new claims coming in. So the administrator is showing you the new claims, and then they're showing you the claims that they've closed off. So it's from a one look point of view, you can see that, okay, maybe in some months we were lagging a bit behind, but it seems like experience is picking up or the two are matching each other. Simple dashboards like this are much easier for boards to digest and to utilize than having long page reports with lots of data. This is quick and easy for boards to see where action is required. Going further, if we look at the left-hand side of the screen, my screen is blue. Okay, up there it's green. So we're showing claims that come into the pipeline, and then we're showing the different steps that it goes through in the process. And so the stuff in green means that it's within SLA, it's where we expect the claim to be tracking. There's no issue around those claims. The red and the amber zone. So amber for us means that it's about to go out of SLA. Red means it's over SLA. And so in some instances, that's acceptable. So for example, on checklist suspend, which is the big red block at the top there, you'll see that that's where we're waiting for member documents. So the actions are different. It means that we've got to engage members. We're waiting for outstanding documents, but it's easy for the board then to track the administrator to say maybe we need to communicate more effectively in terms of what our claims requirements are, etc. So color coding these dashboards with a clear flow in terms of where the work is sitting will help the board. It also helps us analyze whether we're within SLA, outside of SLA, how quickly we're processing a claim, and where are the bottlenecks in the processes. On the right-hand side, we're showing you a dashboard that we developed for Two-Pot. And it does a lot of things, so bear with me. If you look at the middle section, the bigger middle section, you'll see four blocks. And those 4 blocks are how it moves through the SALT EB system. So benefit counselor that Yaku runs is where the information comes in. And so we see how that tracks through. That then moves through an API into our administration platform and then into our payment platform lastly. So we literally track our claims through the platforms, and that is visible. So you can see if it's getting stuck somewhere, where it's getting stuck, which platform it's getting stuck in, and we've got built-in SLAs. So those blocks light up amber, green, red internally so that we know that there's an issue in that particular block. Bottom left-hand side, you'll see the orange and the blue. Those are different funds, so we can show experience. We can say that the blue fund, for example, in March, I heard somebody saying earlier that in March we saw the claims spike again, which we did for Two-Pot. But for the blue fund, it went down again. And then we've seen consistently low experience. But for the orange fund, we've seen it spike and stay up there. So the experience is that we've got more people claiming on that particular fund that we administer. The middle block shows you what's been submitted versus paid. And so I think we're sitting at, I can't see it from here, 95%, more or less, of what come in versus what's been paid. And then to the right of that, we're showing you the claims duration. So that is literally, we're paying, the dark green is within a week, the lighter green is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So where trustees need to focus with the administrator is that little red piece, is how do we get those red claims to be green? What went wrong on the red claims, the claims in the red bit that we need to do better on to ensure that those members also get paid within the 4-week mark? Drill downs that enable action, again, another dashboard, conduct standard 1 tracking. So we're reliant on employers to give us information. And in the industry that we work in, SALT in particular, in industry funds, it's not always that easy. So what we did was we engaged a data enrichment agency and we worked with them to improve the quality of our data. And in some instances, it was fantastic. You'll see, for example, on cell phone number, which is the yellow pillar there, we went from 13% to 99%. As a board, this is what you must be tracking to see where are we sitting. Are we improving or are we going backwards? Were we sitting on 60% last month and we're down to 55% this month? So actively tracking your conduct standard 1 information is critical. Then we've got our member engagements. It's fantastic. We have a portal available as a fund. That's what all funds say. But are members using it? And what are they using it for? So in our funds instances, we've got an 80% uptake of the member portal. Thank you, COVID. That was one of the things that came out of COVID, was that members were forced to go onto the online portal. But they've stayed there. We've seen that number there consistently. Also, if you go into our deeper analytics, you'll see that we even track, and Benefit Counsellor does it, where members are clicking. Are they stopping on the dashboard page that says, I have 2,000 Rand available for my Two-Pot and not going any further? Are they looking at their risk benefits? Where is that particular member engaging with the portal and what are they using it for? Those analytics are available. What we're busy building at the moment as a future view is an employer compliance view. So who are our top contributors to arrears? What is the trend by region? Are we seeing patterns in Gauteng versus KZN as an example? Where are we issuing enforcement letters? What does our compliance framework look like? Member engagement view, like I said, our preferred channel, which we know, is WhatsApp. Our members love WhatsApp. The second next best channel is the call center. So we understand how our members communicate with us. We're focusing on first contact resolution so that we can sort a member out one time, but we don't want to be touching the same member 4 or 5 times. And when that happens, we need to be able to track why that happens. Claims quality view. The reasons for rework. You should touch a claim once. If we're touching a claim more than once, why is that? How do we streamline our process? How do we improve our communication? How do we educate our members so that we don't have to touch a claim multiple times? Cyberview, I don't know much about the IT stuff. That's why Jako's on stage. So he'll take us through the cyberview, but basically also a risk analysis of, what do our vendors look like? What's our RTOs and RPOs? Our CTO was teaching me all these acronyms. I don't think I have them down yet. Okay, so analytics use cases, employer risk scoring. So if you take your employer database and you look at the employers that submit on time, that have the least amount of data errors, that don't lodge disputes, that have low staff turnover, you could probably risk them green. And then you service that employer and deal with that employer in a particular way. And then you've got an employer that's always late, there's always data errors, there's always issues. You risk that employer red, and then you tailor your service offering to that particular employer. That's what we're saying. So proactively understanding who you're dealing with. Predictive claims turnaround times, identifying bottlenecks like in the dashboard I showed you. Complaints topic modeling. Why are members going to the adjudicator? What is it that you need to be doing in order for them, to bring that complaints down? Fraud and error detection, making sure that we are not paying claims we shouldn't be paying, and then member engagement propensity. So we've spoken about next best channel. For SALT, ours is WhatsApp, is the first, is a channel of choice. Next is our contact center, etc. But we've got to push comms more than we pull comms, if that makes sense. So those are the things that we're looking at from an administration point of view. I'm going to hand over to my colleague to talk you through the data governance. Thank you,
Nasli. My name is Jaco Wasserval. I'm the CEO of Benefit Counselor. I don't know what you did last year this time, but we were 5 days away from the two-pot regulation starting. And I can tell you, everybody was probably furiously working on getting the data ready, getting the controls ready around two-pot. It feels to me a little bit like how we talked about two-pot last year. This year, we've spoken about cybersecurity and the joint standard that has accompanied it. So on the data and control, I want to just take you through some of the things that we think are really critical for user fund and the Board of Trustees to start thinking about. It's one thing to be compliant with the data standard. It's a whole new thing to engage with it and really prove that you are moving forward in these spaces. Data inventory and classification, I think this is an easy one. We all know there's a database of members, their names, their beneficiaries, their medicals, etc., etc. But what about access and segregation of duty? What about the things that people that have got access to that data, how do you lock that down to specific IP addresses? How do you create roles-based access? Not everybody needs access to the full database. How do you mask specific information in that database? These are things that trustees need to think about as we move forward. The quality and the rules at ingestion. We all know the old saying about data, if you put junk in, you get junk out. More and more, this is we got to deal with it as it comes out. So format checking, employer code validations, and then really the joint conduct standard 1 of getting the information up to date, working with data agencies, working with the Department of Home Affairs, who've starting to more and more engage with the public and release more information to us to help us on these standards. Retention, deletion, encryption, APIs at rest. All of these were normally things that were in my environment that on a technical standpoint. Now it's on your table as trustees. And then third-party due diligences. If you think about third parties, we always think about the administrator. But what about the people that are doing your newsletter? What about the company that's sending out the SMSs? What about the member portal? What about WhatsApp information? What about Meta? Have you thought about them as part of your third-party due diligence and SLAs? Data pillars that are really critical for us to think about. So you got to think about your governance, the ownership, the lineage, the quality of your data quality. These are kind of things that we have worked on quite a bit. But the next step, when we talk about insights, when we talk about analytics, predictive analytics, things that used to be out there in the tech world is now very much firmly in the pension fund world as well. If we don't get the governance and the quality right, we're never going to be able to retrieve any insights or any analytics out of our data. If we can get the insights and the analytics right, we can start better managing performance. We can get better KPIs out. We will know what to put on the dashboard that Naslia showed us. It's great to have a dashboard, but you got to know what you're looking at. You got to know what you're tracking. You got to figure out what are those critical KPIs for us. And it's not just the things that are written in the SLA. It's not just about paying claims in 15 or 30 or 45 days. And then technologically resilience, and we're going to touch a little bit more on this when we talk about the joint conduct standard on cyber now. But this is really now, I think, the most critical thing that trustees need to think about, and this spills into the COFI bill that is coming. So the joint standard, what should you ask as trustees? And we at Benefit Council are provided to quite a few funds, and these are the questions that you should be asking to these providers, not just your administrator, but the auxiliary providers that are helping the administrator and are part of your ecosystem. Have you documented your cybersecurity strategy, governance, your business rescue? Are those things written down on paper? Yeah, I know it feels crazy to think that you got to write this stuff down because it all lives in the cloud and it's all up there. But if you don't know what you're doing, then you've got no way of tracking it. These are critical documents that need to be reviewed every year, and they really are the baseline of any kind of ISO 27701 or NIST compliance frameworks. Is these things that need to be written down. And this is most often where administrators, providers, people like ourselves, that's where we most often fail these kind of assessments. Is a lot of it is implemented, but a lot of it is not documented, reviewed, and updated in the correct manner. Have you tested your incident response, your disaster recovery? It feels like, yes, you've did it, but you probably did it years ago, and you got to do this on a continual basis. Third-party breach scenarios, have we thought about those? Have we got an idea of how to handle them? Then cybersecurity hygiene. Have you got some kind of a cadence? A lot of these standards, ISO 27701, NIST, these kind of standards require annual, if not quarterly, review of policies, documentation, updating things as things change. So really a continual process, not something that gets filed away in the folder on the Z drive that you never think about. Do you know what's required for incident response? Do you have an understanding of what needs to happen if there is a breach of data? Who needs to be involved? Where it needs to get reported? And then the roadmap, the continual improvement. I think the best thing for all of us to do is just to get a baseline in these things. We started with NIST reporting quite a few years ago, and what you start with and where you want to end is never the best place. You never start at the best place, but it's a continual process. You got to keep evolving. You got to keep building on this. And I really think this is a critical factor that all the board needs to consider of how we're going to take care of this. I really would recommend that you start thinking about having experts that are involved, whether on a contract basis, whether that's one of the key portfolios for a trustee on your board, is to be able to understand this. If you receive a report now from a provider and they've got all these things that they're doing, there's 100 blocks, how do you know which ones are critical? How do you know which one should be on the next roadmap item? Which ones are you going to come back to next year as things that need to be improved or in the next 3 or 6 months? So I think like a cyber information type person, trustee, expert is really critical for every board and for every administrator as we go forward. And these things are going to accelerate. If we all want to all want to go to a conference where someone speaks about AI, so I'll be that guy now for you. If you want to use AI and you want to use all these great tools, we got to get these fundamentals in place. Otherwise, all of that is a little bit useless. Okay, so fund channel and member experience. Most of us think that fund members come to us on a walk-in center or an email, but there's so many touch points for fund members. WhatsApp, as my colleague has spoken about, Nasli and their fund is huge. Emails, call centers, member portals, employee portals, newsletters, videos, podcasts. And then obviously the dreaded social media, where most people just go to complain when they don't get what they want. We got to really think about these as a true omni-channel, as a one touch point of members. And we're working really hard to sanitize data, to start understanding how data comes together, and to be able to help members plot a member journey, going from the first touch point. Did he go into the member portal? Did he check what his two-pot balance is? He logged out. He came back a week later via an email or via call center and asked what does it mean? How does he go about claiming? Then he goes back into WhatsApp, starts a claim process. Then he comes back and asks, when is my claim going to get paid? It's been 20 minutes. What's happening here? So, and all of these things is one member engagement, one member contact, even though it happened on 4 or 5 different channels. And then obviously we want to avoid this space where they end up on social media complaining that it's now been 17 and a half minutes and he hasn't received his funds balance. What's going on? So if we can help members up front understand the process and really view a member as a person, no matter where they come from, these things in our data policy standards, governance is going to make a real difference to us. And we can, just in the scenario, how many touch points of data there is that never really touched the critical admin system and database that we all think about as our member data. Something that I think you as trustees need to think about is the website. Where is it hosted? Think about your trustee email. Those are all touch points for data security that you need to think about. It's not just what happens at the admin office, but also what happens in the PO office or in the funds office that are critical touch points. The World Economic Forum had a stat that 95% of cyber incidents are because of humans. So we really are one of the most critical risk factors out there. Think about the email on your phone. That's a critical risk point that we almost never address, and that are something that we need to consider. Okay, but enough about cyber. What about the future? As if we don't have enough regulation, we're getting a COFI regulation, readiness through data, being able to prove what we're doing more than just having a policy in place. All these things are more and more becoming data-driven, and COFI is in the works. 5 critical things to consider is to define the outcome metrics. Think about your product oversights, the quality of vulnerable customers, evidence via data. So policies, SLAs are not good enough anymore. We need insights, we need dashboards, we need real evidence of what we've done and how we've done it. We've got to map our controls, our gap assessments. One of the key gap assessments I think that we all got to do is obviously on the data security, move that forward, and then standardize on the board packs, dashboards, heat maps. The great thing about these kind of dashboards is the more you see them, the more accustomed you get to them, the better you read them and the better you understand them. So I really encourage you to that. Okay, we've got 2 minutes for a checklist. Nasli put these 5 tiles up front for you there. So think about one for Section 13A, a complaint dashboard, a quality of claims dashboard, cybersecurity dashboard, obviously my bit that I've spoken about now, and then the trustee toolkits, the conflicts declarations, all of those go into your dashboard. I think all of them will have 2 or 3 potential drill downs that you can add for your fund and for your trustees, and then also potentially you'll add more to these. And then a monthly bill, monthly dashboard that we looked at, some things to consider for an annual review. Good slide to take a photo of, some data governance frameworks, data dictionaries, quality rule books. Think about the independent assurance, the admin controls, the audit, the NIST standards, potentially POPI compliance assessments. All of these things and responsibilities are now your responsibility. Crisis simulation, product oversight, member communication, testing this, thinking about the readability and the accessible channels for members. All of these things now are coming in your space. And then one key suggested KPI library for you, things that we think are critical or that's valuable to start on. Try to get to 95% of your contributions reconciled and allocated. Try to keep the backlogs to under 30 days. 5% of employers are late in any month. Think about them. Think about the claims. The complaint resolution within 15 days is a critical to get 95% of that done and to have less than 2% repeat claimants. And then cyber, spoken a lot about that. Start thinking about things that can be rectified in 14 days and think about what the road looks like for the next year. I've got 10 seconds left, so we are perfectly on time. So hopefully your cyber policies and your coffee bill is on time as well. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.